This is the Forge Audio Network, your official source for all things Forge FC.
Hey there, and thanks for checking us out on the Forge Audio Network. And no, do not adjust your screen. It is not 2019. It is not 2020. It's Louie Butko here, and I'm very honored to be breaking down the 2024 Concacaf Champions Cup. Gotta make sure I say that right. The Champions Cup, the draw that just happened just a few minutes ago. And here to break it down with us is OneSoccer, one of the lead analysts at OneSoccer. It's Oli Platt, also a very good friend of mine. Oli, we'll get into the matchup. We'll get into Guadalajara or Chivas. But I do want to talk about just the significance of this tournament. Just because CPL is so new, and I know people who are probably watching this are diehard, CPL fans, but for the casual fan who might have come across this video, just talk about how significant this tournament is and for CPL teams to be playing in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it's our continental competition, right? So if you're familiar with European soccer, and obviously you'll know that the Champions League over there is kind of the pinnacle of club soccer. That's the competition you want to win above all else, I think, in Europe. And I think in CONCACAF in North and Central America, we've kind of been building that type of competition over a period of years, and the format hasn't always been quite right, and there's been differences in the calendars that different countries operate on and so on. And so it's taken a bit of time, I think, for CONCACAF to kind of refine the competition. But they've revamped it for this year. And we're going to get to see Canadian Premier League clubs, 2 Canadian Premier League clubs every year, and maybe even a third if one can win the Canadian Championship, qualify for this competition and get to test themselves against the absolute best teams in the region. And you can see that in the draw that these 3 Canadian teams participating this year have got, including Forge.
Yeah, and you look at the terms of the competition that they got. It's not going to be easy. And again, we'll get to the matchups. But again, I think it's important just to highlight this doesn't happen without the CPL and where this league has gone to showcase that this competition and that these teams are good enough for this competition. And the jersey here behind me probably deserves a lot of credit for that run in the CONCACAF League a few years ago to become that first team to qualify from the CPL in the Champions League.
Yeah, they showed that they can compete, right? I think they've kind of set the bar forward, as they have done in a lot of ways in the CPL, to be honest, as to what we can maybe expect from CPL teams against these types of opponents. Cavalry have done it as well with what they did in the Canadian Championship in that first year too. I think that set a really good standard. So, it's going to be tough, I think, in the early years as we see these CPL teams compete against MLS clubs, Liga MX clubs from around the region on a more regular basis. They're always going to be the underdogs going into these matchups, and they certainly are in the matchups they've drawn out. But I think this, it's a process of getting to test yourself against these teams, growing the league as a result of the attention that these games get, and also the exposure that, Canadian players and teams get as a result of going up against this caliber of club. It's going to be a massive, massive help for the league, I think. As soon as I heard that this was happening and we'd be getting more CPL teams, more Canadian teams in this competition, I think it's a game changer for the CPL in terms of the profile, the level of competition, and all those things.
And again, I don't know if Bobby will publicly admit this, but, part of winning the championship, I've talked to him a lot over the last few years. This has been a goal for him even before the automatic berths. You talk to Coach Bobby, he'll tell you the CONCACAF Champions League, this is not just to test themselves, but also to prove themselves against the continent's best.
Yeah, I think they were pretty open this year that, they've got a few titles under their belt, and as much as your bread and butter is always winning the league first and foremost, I think their target as much as anything was to make sure they were in this competition this year. And I think they missed it a little bit this year, to be honest with you. Having that different competition just to, stir up the competitive juices a little bit, get yourself that higher caliber of opponent that I think sets you up well to then return to CPL action and compete there as well. So they've become used to this, as you mentioned, playing in CONCACAF League, and I think it'll be a very welcome return for Forge for sure.
And again, just highlighting Forge's initial trip to the CONCACAF League. That was back in 2022, losing 1-0 to Cruz Azul at home, losing 3-0 at Azteca. But still, I know some of those players on Forge FC, they'll still highlight as playing at Azteca as one of the highlights. Not the result they wanted, but definitely just being able to play at that stadium. Let's talk about Forge's opponent, Guadalajara or Chivas. Tough draw. Let's not kid ourselves. That is a tough opening round draw for Forge FC.
It is, yeah. This is a team that won the Champions League as it was then not too long ago and beat Toronto FC in that final, that people may remember. It's arguably in some ways the biggest club in Mexico. Maybe not in terms of recent success, because I don't think they've had as much of that as America, as Tigres over recent years. But in terms of the popularity, the relevance of the club, there are a lot of Chivas fans across Mexico and across North America in general. It's an immensely popular club. They have a unique identity. They only play Mexican players. They're one of the rare clubs around the world that sticks to that kind of philosophy. And they're good. They just finished fifth in the Apertura, which is just coming to an end right now. Made the playoffs there. They're a competitive team, even if the trophies haven't been there as much as they probably would have liked in recent years. So a big test for sure.
Now, obviously, history dictates a lot of this, but let's let people know Mexican clubs have pretty much straight out dominated this tournament since it started in 1962, no?
Yes, yeah. MLS has started to make that breakthrough recently, obviously, with Seattle winning it, but it took a long time, like longer than you would probably even think, given the growth of MLS in recent years. I think they would have hoped to have won it earlier, but it was, Toronto FC lost the final, LAFC lost the final. The Mexican clubs, yeah, you're right, have traditionally dominated this.
You mentioned biggest club in Mexico. So, I mean, are we talking about the Man U of Mexico? Like, I mean, not to put you on the spot here, but and not to say Man U is the biggest club, but I mean, some people will argue that. But is this the equivalent? Like, would this be playing the Man U of Mexico?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad comparison. I'm not sure how you'd exactly measure them against, a club from a different country and get the exact right profile. But certainly it's in that conversation. Man United, Liverpool, the Barcelona, Real Madrid in Spain. Like this is, again, what I think the most popular club just in terms of fan base in Mexico. So yeah, it's a big opponent. You're going to go down to a big stadium. The place will be, I'm sure, enthusiastic, and they'll get a lot of support there. So that will be, I think, as much, Azteca is a historic stadium, so I don't want to compare it to that. But again, going down to Mexico and playing in that kind of environment, get up against that kind of crowd, that's going to be another special night for Forge.
While you mentioned the crowd here, Oli, I will let people watching or listening know tickets aren't on sale yet. We don't know when the game will be yet. Sometime in February, we know that. But if you are a Forge FC season seat member, you'll get priority access when tickets do go on sale. So to do that, you can go to Forge FC, the Forge FC's website, or call your ticket representative. Back to just Mexican soccer as a whole. What differentiates? Is there something specific? Is there a specific style, or is it, Mexican soccer? Just like, CPL, you're going to have different teams playing different styles. Is there something that is consistent across Mexican soccer?
I think nowadays there tends to be more of a mix. I think like a lot of places in the world, there's been different ideas that have come in, coaches from different countries. And so it's kind of all blended in a little bit more, and you'll see, different styles in the same way, like you said, you see in the CPL. Traditionally, I think Mexican teams generally, they're fast, they're in your face, they can be quite direct at times. You still see that, I think from the national team at its best, and maybe they've got away from that a little bit in recent years. So that's kind of the image of Mexican soccer that I have in my mind traditionally. But yeah, I would say that nowadays, Chivas have a foreign coach, for example, so they do tend to bring in, more European ideas and things of that nature.
And fingers crossed, let's be optimists here, Oli. If Forge FC were to shock the continental football world, beat Guadalajara, and again, I don't want to say shock. If they were to win, it doesn't get much easier with Club America as their round of 16 opponent, does it? It
doesn't. It's a tough pathway. I was hoping to see someone get in that slot where they'd potentially get into Miami and Messi in that second round, which unfortunately didn't come to pass. But yeah, it's a tough competition. Like the way they've changed the format and expanded it, there's a lot of Mexican teams, a lot of MLS teams. Obviously, they tend to be the best teams at that moment in time, by virtue of qualifying by winning leagues or getting to finals and things of that nature. So yeah, there are some real big hitters in there, but I do think that, Forge have come out with one of the bigger ones, as have the Vancouver Whitecaps with Tigres as well. So it should be some really good matches.
We know Bobby probably had a notebook about that thick on each team in this competition. Now that he knows who he's going to get, what do you think the next steps are for Forge FC? They're taking some time off over Christmas, but if you this club, what do you think we should be looking for in the next few weeks out in the new year with Forge FC?
Well, you know that you're an underdog going into this matchup, right? And so there's no guarantees of getting another matchup after this and continuing in this competition. It's going to be really hard. I'm sure they won't, make any bones about that. So you want to make sure that you're ready for this one. And that means being ready much earlier in the year than you would typically be used to for a normal CPL season. Obviously, the CPL will start sometime in April, or it normally does. The first leg of these ties will kick off in that week of February 5th, I think it is. So it's way earlier than they're used to playing. So they're going to have to bring their preseason forwards, going to have to get their transfer business done that little bit earlier. So maybe you can expect to see a bit of a quicker off-season this time from Forge in terms of getting those new signings in and getting the squad ready. And you want to be primed to make the most of the opportunity that's in front of you.
And listen, if there's one club, we know a club that basically didn't stop playing football from basically February 2020 right through the pandemic. Yeah. We had the Island Games, right? I mean, this team knows about short off season. So, I wouldn't put it past Bobby to maybe shock the continental football world. Oli, I might get in trouble for doing this, but it is the Canadian Premier League here behind me. Cavalry FC, their matchup. What do you see in that one?
It's another good one. It's what I was hoping for really from Forge and Cavalry was one to get a Liga MX team and one to get an MLS team. And I think Orlando's a nice one for Cavalry. It'd be much nicer weather, firstly, to go down to Florida. I'm still not sure what that first leg in Calgary is going to look like in February. It's going to be, if they can pull it off, I'm sure it'll be an incredible night in terms of the scenes there. But it's a really good team. A team that struggled in their early MLS years, appointed Oscar Pareja, who's a very good coach, and has made the MLS playoffs 4 years since, every year 4 years since. So a real test for them. But again, the kind of game that you'll go to a great stadium in Orlando, play against a very good team. You just have to embrace that kind of challenge.
Asa, Raymond, and I went down there for Canada-US leg. I believe that was 2019, actually. So that is a beautiful stadium. And what do you anticipate? Maybe there being an issue at the grounds there in Calgary. I mean, Forge has played a game where they've needed to blowtorch the pitch. Do you foresee a potential something happening there? I mean, it is cold in Calgary in February.
Yeah, the honest answer is I don't know. Obviously, Forge has the artificial pitch, and so that holds up better over winter, even if it can still be challenging to get the game off. Cavalry plays on natural grass, and it's a great field in the summertime, but getting it ready in early February is going to be a real challenge for them. So fingers crossed they can pull it off or find some kind of solution. I think they're working on it right now. But yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know what the current plan is on that front.
All right, Oli, your job over this Christmas break is to find out what that plan is, okay?
Got it. I'll be on it.
Oli, I really appreciate you making the time. I know Forge FC fans appreciate you making the time as well to help break down the 2024 Concacaf Champions Cup.
Got it.
Make sure I get that right. I wrote it down on my hand somewhere. So, Oli, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Anytime.
My thanks to Oli Platt for joining me, and my thanks to you as well. Make sure you subscribe to the Forge Audio Network so you never miss an episode of any of the shows we have for you. From all of us here at the Forge Audio Network, I'm Louie Butko. Have a great day.